Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paladin and welcome back to a 1,000 plus K subscriber YouTube partner channel. Yeah, dude, we did it! Easy clap! I just want to thank everybody so much for supporting the channel. I started this back in the late summer just because I wanted to teach myself a video editing software. I taught myself in like the first day, started my first video. Eventually I posted it. I thought I'd get like 100 views. Somehow it's up to like 40K. I never thought I'd, end up making more videos, but I really have been enjoying it. It's pretty fun to make the videos, to help people out, put out the content, and here I am. So thank you so much for all the support. I appreciate it, and here's to like 10K subs, who knows. Anyways, back to why you guys are all here. Today I'll be comparing the top 2 most optimal prot paladin legendaries for Mythic Plus. Now this is an M Plus specific legendaries, guys, so you can use whatever you want for other content. You can use whatever you want in M+. If you're a good enough player, you could probably get into an 18 key with a good enough group, and you could run no legendary and still, make it in time. You can do whatever you want. However, for M+, there are 2 legendaries that are more optimal for prot paladin, and those are going to be the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil and the Bulwark of Righteous Fury. So in the video, I'm going to be going over their pros and cons, when one might be better than the other. I'll compare the 2, and then I'll give you my thoughts on which one might be better and how to properly min-max them if that's what you guys are into. Before we get started, you can catch me at twitch.tv/PaladinDan. I do try and stream over there whenever I can. I might be able to stream today, I don't know. And aside from that, again guys, thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for getting me to 1,000 subscribers. And let's get started with the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil. So the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil is, in my opinion, and I've seen many other people agree, the most fun legendary that is available to prot paladins. And that is because you can spam more Avenger shields. Now, Avenger shield is, I don't know, half of the reason why I play protection paladin, aside from the class fantasy and, playing with sword and board, which is pretty cool. But Avenger shield is by far my favorite ability to use on prot paladin, and this legendary lets you spam it. So whenever you get that fat 5, 6, I think the most I've gotten is like about 10 resets. It feels really good to just be pressing only with that one button over and over again. However, getting right into the pros of this legendary, I'm going to give an honorable mention to increased damage. So obviously you have a 35% chance for your Avenger shield to reset. That is the power of the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil, and that is going to transfer into more damage. However, I say this is an honorable mention as a pro because if you're after pure damage, you can skip the entire video and just go build yourself a Bulwark of the Righteous Fury. That's going to give you the most DPS over the course of an entire dungeon. However, Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil still does a very respectable amount of damage and has other utility and pros that the Bulwark does not. So getting right into the very first pro, and in my opinion the most important one, it's going to be getting more interrupts. Now, in a pug setting, which is what I assume most of you are doing, that's what I do, the value of having extra interrupts is way higher than when you're in a pre-made group. Why is that? It's going to be because in pugs, usually one of 2 things happen. Everyone interrupts the same exact ability, and then nobody has an interrupt for like half a minute, except for you, because you're prot paladin. Or nobody interrupts, and everyone wipes, and the entire party disbands. This is going to give you extra resets. So if somebody misses an interrupt, you can hopefully get it with a reset on your Avenger shield. However, it also comes in handy even in the pre-made groups with stuff like kicks that are not priority kicks, but you would still want to kick. And what do I mean by that? Take Spires of Ascension, for example, right? You're going to have a lot of nasty pools where you need a lot of kicks. So let's talk about the pool right before the first boss. You're going to want to be kicking the Rebellious Fist on the huge golem. That's going to be a prio kick. Everyone's going to, you're going to ideally want a rotation of kicks on that. You're also going to want to kick the Burden of Knowledge on one of the other packs. I forget the actual name. But you already have 2 priority kicks, which must be kicked. Otherwise, the group's going to be taking a ton of damage. And there isn't really much room left to kick other stuff. However, in that pack, there's also another angel that uses an ability called Dark Lash on the tank, which does a ton of magic damage. And ideally, you would want to be able to kick that so that you don't take a ton of damage, you're not getting chunked. Maybe you don't have to use a defensive in that pool, right? You can save it for the boss or for something else. Now, Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil is going to allow you to maybe get an extra kick on that. So, say you already kicked Rebellious Fist with your interrupt, maybe you got Burden of Knowledge with the Avenger Shield, But now your Avenger shield reset, you can quickly tab over and get that dark lash kick as well, so you don't take that damage. So in essence, you're almost even taking less damage from kicks like that. You know, if you can, in Plaguefall, there are a lot of kicks. If you can kick some of those extra ones that hurt your party or hurt you, your party or yourself will take less damage. So again, the first pro of Holy Avengers is that you get extra kicks, extra interrupts. And that is really its strongest point. Now, the second pro, I would say, is that you get a little bit of extra healing, and that is because you will be taking First Avenger in M+. If you're not taking First Avenger in Mythic Plus as a prot paladin, you're doing it wrong. It ends up being about 40% of your overall healing throughout the dungeon. So assuming that you're taking that, whenever you get an extra reset on your Avenger shield, you're going to get a little bit of extra shielding. Now, the problem is that usually the cooldown is not reset, it's only a 35% chance, and if it is reset, you only get usually about 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky extra procs. Sometimes you get really lucky and you can get like 5 extra procs, right? But let's say you only get 1 extra proc on your Avenger shield, that's not really going to give you that much mitigation, right? If you were already kiting a pool and you get a reset and you get that extra shielding, it's not really going to make it so that you can stop kiting and tank, you know, face tank the pool, right? You're still going to have to kite. The only time where this is actually relevant is if you get about 3 or 4 resets. At that point, you're almost reaching like a Divine Toll level shield where you might be able to tank a pack for an extra maybe 3 seconds. So it is a pro. You do get more healing end of dungeon. You do get a little bit more healing overall. However, it is negligible and it won't make or break a key. The third pro to this one and the last one is going to be that you can kite mobs and still do your damage, right? Avenger Shield is a ranged ability. So if you're kiting away, you can keep spamming your rotation, including Avenger Shield, and if you get resets, you're going to be doing that extra damage and getting that extra shielding from a very safe distance. That's not something that can be said for the Bulwark of Righteous Fury, which I'll get into in a little bit, but you can safely do damage with Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil whenever you get your resets. So overall, for the pros, most importantly, you get extra interrupts, you're going to get a little bit extra healing, and you're going to be able to do your damage. So the Legendary is going to provide you value through your damage even while you're kiting. The only con to this one is that really there isn't that much of a survivability aspect to it. You're not going to be taking that much less damage. It's not going to mitigate damage for you. And it doesn't do as much damage as the Bulwark of Righteous Fury, which is what we're going to get into next. So Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil, it's really good. But let's move on to the Bulwark of Righteous Fury and see what that has to provide for us. So the main draw to using Bulwark of Righteous Fury is that you're going to be doing insane amounts of DPS. You're going to be doing what everyone wants to do, topping the meters. I have many pools where I top the charts, and you're not going to beat some mage who's combusting, or a hunter with all its cooldowns, or a DK with its cooldowns, or a monk with its cooldowns, but you can compete pretty well. You can keep up in AoE with a lot of the DPS with this legendary. And overall, your dungeon damage overall is going to be higher. Now what it does, if you guys don't already know, is that it empowers your next Shield of the Righteous for every enemy hit with your Avenger Shield, stacking up to 5 times. So I throw out my Avenger Shield, I hit 5 enemies, it's going to give me 30% extra damage per enemy hit, stacking up to 5. My next Shield of the Righteous is going to hit for 150% extra damage. This is going to provide you with some good burst, and it's going to give you some consistent damage over AoE packs. However, this is really the only pro of this legendary, is that it gives you a ton of damage. Now, doing a ton of extra damage is really important, especially in higher keys, and that's why you see Demon Hunters being used, because they do very good damage, almost as much as Protection Paladins, but they're a lot tankier. That's why a lot of people are using them. You also see a lot of monks becoming popular right now, because monks do the most damage compared to any other tank. No one's even close, and they still have superior mitigation to Protection Paladins. It's just they don't have as much magic mitigation as Demon Hunters. But you see these tanks being used, and they're popular because they speed up the dungeon. So, for example, let's say you start off the dungeon, you do your first trash pool. Usually you end up doing a really big one because you have lust available. And let's say that normally without the Bulwark of Righteous Fury, it would take you about a minute to clear that pack. However, if you use the Bulwark, maybe it takes you 50 seconds. And what does this mean? It means that you not only saved 10 seconds for your entire group from the dungeon, but you also erased 10 seconds of taking damage from the pool. It only took you 50 seconds instead of 60. That's 10 seconds where you weren't taking damage. So in essence, it gives you pseudo mitigation. Now, it doesn't actually give you mitigation, but it gives you pseudo mitigation in the sense that if every pull is going to be shorter, you're going to end up taking less total damage overall in the dungeon. Now, you can extrapolate from one pull. You know, let's say that you're saving yourself 5 to 10 seconds in every trash pull. That's going to add up to a decent amount at the end because you're doing that extra damage to push you guys through the dungeon faster. So that has a lot of value. That's why this legendary is very popular and is still used even in high keys, even though it doesn't provide you any real mitigation as a tank. Now, getting into the cons, compared to the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil, you're not going to be getting extra interrupts. You're not going to be getting any extra utility whatsoever except for your damage. So you're not going to be getting your interrupts. You don't get that extra bit of mitigation from First Avenger combined with the extra Avenger shield procs. And you can still do DPS while kiting, but I'll get into it a little bit later. It's going to be a lot more challenging to do so. So in a pug setting, you can still use this legendary. It's the one I currently use right now, to be honest. However, you have to be aware that the kicks are going to have to be a little bit more on point when it comes to trash pulls. And you might have to use your mitigation a little bit more often if people don't get some certain kicks, or if you're in a situation like I was talking about earlier where you're in Spires of Ascension and you're taking a lot of damage from kicks that are not priority kicks. Now, with this legendary, I will say that it's a little bit more skill capped. It has a little bit of a higher ceiling when it comes to using it correctly. And why is that? In the current setting, if you're doing 15 plus keys, you're going to be kiting almost every single pull. Once your cooldown is gone, right? If I use Guardian of the Ancient Kings, if I use my Ardent Defender, if I used my Divine Shield, once those are up, I'm kiting. I'm not going to be face tanking the mobs. They do too much damage. With Holy Avenger, you can keep spamming your Avenger Shield even while you're kiting from a safe distance, and you're going to get the damage and utility from it. However, with the Bulwark of Righteous Fury, you can still get the damage output from it. It's just that it's a lot harder and more challenging to do so. So for example, when you're using the Bulwark and you're trying to get that damage out, you're going to have to start kiting, keep on doing your rotation. Once you get an Avenger Shield, you'll throw it out, get your proc, and then you're going to have to turn around and get close enough to the mob that the Shield of the Righteous will hit them and do the damage, that fat damage output, but far away enough from the mob that you're not getting meleeed. Now, this isn't hard to do per se, but it is somewhat challenging, especially in different pools. So for someone who doesn't feel so confident in doing that, you might be better off with something like the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil, because it's going to give you a little bit more ease of use while you're kiting. So for Bulwark of Righteous Fury, guys, you have to be doing this, you know, back and forth, kiting, going back, not in melee range, but close enough to get the Shield of the Righteous off. You have to do that for the legendary to give you any value, right? If you just start kiting with this legendary and you don't turn around to use your Shield of the Righteous when it's up and you have the proc on it, you may as well go into the dungeon without a legendary. You're not going to be getting any value out of that legendary because the value isn't doing damage, doing more overall damage in the dungeon with Shield of the Righteous. And if you're just kiting away and you're not turning around to do that damage, then you may as well just go with the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil or literally anything else, because at that point you would be getting literally no value from Bulwark of the Righteous. So in the end, when I compare these two together, it's really your choice. It depends on what you want to do. If you want to make pugs a little bit easier for yourself, pick up the slack from people who miss interrupts, or just get extra interrupts on mobs that are not priority, then go ahead and use the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil. It's still going to give you some very good damage overall. Not as much as the Bulwark, but it's going to give you a lot more utility. Now, if you feel a little bit more confident in yourself and your tanking skills, I would say go for the Bulwark, because at the end of the day, you're going to be making the dungeon faster for yourself, faster for the group, and it's going to save you a little bit of time. But at the end of the day, you can use either one. If you look at the top 20 prot paladins right now, it's about a 50-50 split between these two. Some people use the Holy Avenger, some people use the Bulwark or the Righteous. It doesn't really matter which one you use. You can use whichever one you find most fun, or whichever one you just enjoy using the most. Now, if you want to really min-max it a lot, you could do something like build both of them. And if you're in a kick-heavy dungeon, like something like Spires of Ascension, Plaguefall, use the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil. But if you're in an easy clap dungeon, like Mist of Tyrann's Scythe, where I don't even really tank, I don't really even kite that much except for the first two pulls. Aside from those, I just kind of face tank the rest of the dungeon, right? Something like The Other Side, where, you know, there are some scary pulls there, but for the most part, I can face tank a lot of them. In those, you could take the Bulwark of the Righteous because you know you're going to be able to face tank and do your rotation and get a lot of damage output from that legendary. If you're running with something like a Hunter who can put down the Tar Trap, combined with your consecration. At that point, you can also use Bulwark of the Righteous, right? Because the mobs are going to be so slow that you can easily be out of their melee range and still be getting the Shield of the Righteous off. Right? So in that situation, it's a lot easier to use Bulwark of the Righteous. If you guys have a Boomkin in your group, just about every pool, if not every other pool, you're going to have Tree Ents if you ask your Boomkin to use it. In that case, you know you're going to be able to freely do your rotation without having to kite. It's going to be really easy. You'll probably get more value out of the damage you get from Bulwark of the Righteous than you would Holy Avenger in those situations. So you can min-max it for every dungeon that you do if you want to be a little bit more try-hard, which is fine. You know, some people enjoy playing that way. But in the end, both of them are really good legendaries. You can't go wrong with using either or. It doesn't matter if you want to use these in higher keys, lower keys. They work very well in both settings. Just make sure you know the pros and cons of each one and how to properly use each one so that you can get the most out of them. And that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope I was able to help you out. If you have any questions or any comments, please leave them down below. I always try and read them and get back to you guys. Again, you can catch me at twitch.tv/PaladinDan. I hope you guys have a great day, and with that all said, I will see you all in the next one.